With watching the fan club's video on do fans hold the brand to unreachable standards, expectations versus the reality of the brand, I kind of wanted to throw my 2 cents in this because I wanted to add a little bit more kind of add to it effectively, and I thought I would make a video out of it. So huzzah! Here is a video. So I'm going to link his video in the description so you can go check it out if you want to. When it comes to Power Rangers, I feel like there is a lot of different views. Either it should stay the same, it should kind of evolve. And I feel like as we're adults, when we look at the show in general, as we've grown up, we want the show to grow up. And I believe that the show did grow up to some degree, such as after Mighty Morphin, Zeo, Turbo, I would say in Space, and then so on and so on. The show started to kind of grow with the audience. And something then happened. As soon as we got to the end of RPM, the show just went back to, hey, this is a kid's show, and it kind of lost its memento with bad editing, as in I think the 3rd or 4th or 5th episode was shown first compared to the first episode, so it's kind of really, really weird. But I kind of wanted to touch a bit more on this. So as kids, when we watch cartoons and we watch shows, it interests us. We want it to grow. We want the characters to do whatever. And this is where I think Power Rangers kind of stops a lot. And it is kind of a bad thing to some degree. As we get older, our tastes change. And when we look back at certain shows, we kind of want those elements to kind of change. We want to see characters get into relationships. We want to see more kind of hostility between certain characters. As we grow up, we kind of want something a little bit different. As we mature, we want our shows to mature. Stuff that we loved as a kid, we want to see it mature as well, to become what we are adults, and is therefore leading into a more mature show, which is absolutely fine. Sometimes you do have to kind of keep that kid element type thing to a show like Power Rangers, but there have been multiple times where we've looked at shows and gone, do you know what? I think that does need to be a little bit more adult. It's all about how when we grow, the show grows. It's as simple as that. If visual effects are kind of cheesy, then obviously they've got to improve. Otherwise, you're paying for a lot of stuff that nobody's gonna kind of care about. We've also see how the show is written. Is it going to adjust to new times, old times? Is it going to stay in the past, or is it going to be something completely brand new? Who knows? The writing must change, otherwise you're kind of left in the dark. Now, let's take The Flash from the 90s. Now, I used to watch bits of it from what I can remember. It's been a long time. Some people can think, oh, well, this is really corny. This is kind of sticking into the realm of old DC films and stuff like that. When you look at The Flash from the 90s, you can definitely tell that it's a product of how DC movies, how an era of time has kind of kept how that series is. Could it be corny? Could it be completely outdated? But that's the 90s version of it, and that's what gives it its kind of charm. Now, when the CW produced The Flash for them, they didn't get the same writers. They didn't look back at some of the things and go, hey, we need to make that 90s show back here, and we need to make sure it's happening. We need to take all of the stuff that happened, all that element, and just copy that, and that's it. We don't put our own spin take on it. But The Flash did really well up to a certain point, and each time it was actually completely different, and I really enjoyed The Flash until much of the later seasons. The writers of the CW show didn't look back at the 90s and go, we have to keep these fans, we have to make sure these fans are the only ones there, and then that's it, appealing to one particular set of fans. No, they opened it up to pretty much everybody who knows of The Flash. If you like comic books, there is The Flash. If you liked other elements like the movies, the animated stuff, there we go. There is The Flash in CW form, and it worked really, really well in my eyes. Dan brings up another point of, do we want Power Rangers to be like Marvel and DC? Now, I'm going to say yes, we do want it. But you could do something completely different to it. You don't have to set it exactly like it, but you could frame it, you could film it, you could write as those sorts of shows and movies are, to kind of give Power Rangers a huge boost, to kind of bring it into the modern world. We pretty much have it as this kid show where, yeah, it's okay at times, but it needs that kind of a sprinkle of dust to make it even better than what it can be. If you're going to make an animated show, yeah, you could make it you could make it very similar to the Marvel and DC shows, the animated stuff. The DC stuff I always feel is a little bit better than Marvel, even though I haven't seen any Marvel stuff for a while, but the DC stuff always kind of stands out, and you want to kind of bring that to Power Rangers rather than just say, hey, let's just sell toys. And that kind of brings me up to my next point, is that these shows like from DC and Marvel aren't dependent on toy sales, comic book sales, because they're made for people to enjoy. You have the physical media, you have direct download, whichever way you want it to go. So you could make Power Rangers that isn't there to sell for toys. And, since recently with Cosmic Fury, there's only a few set of toys. Like, I'm not going to go out and buy a Megazord because I watched the series. I would buy the figures because they're cool, but there are no figures. So you could stop having this all done for toys. It would make more sense to do that than say, actually make a show that sells toys. Now, we've heard that Power Rangers is sometimes written to kind of not have complex storylines because kids don't understand it. You need to get rid of that thought because kids understand a lot more of these plots than most people, yet making it sure that your target audience doesn't get kind of a decent storyline is also kind of stupid. I don't know why they have that mentality. You have kids watching like DC films, Marvel films, they'll watch Iron Man, yet Disney and Warner Brothers, they don't make these movies for kids. They make it for all audiences, and they don't go, oh shit, maybe the younger audience is going to be watching us, so we need to make sure that Iron Man doesn't explain high-tech technology. And the fact is that when someone says, hey, how does your suit go? He goes, magic, and that's all. If they did something like that, they would lose a lot of respect from a lot of people. So don't write it for kids. That's a simple thing. I always think that when Power Rangers came around, all the way up to RPM, it was enjoyable. It wasn't complex at times, but after the Neo Saban era, it's just kind of gone to the, oh, hey kids, how you doing? It's not the best thing in the entire world. I just feel like you could do more with it. I agree with Dan saying like they could do a lot more with the brand. There are a lot of fans when it comes to Power Rangers. You kind of think that you would have it say, how can we beat the previous season? How can we make it more, rather than just say, hey, we're going to keep with the same kind of formula. Let's say they're still running Beast Morphers at the moment. At the time, you could have multiple other projects kind of like going on. Try something new. Like, one of the best things that I've seen from Sentai has been like the Strongest Battle, where you have all the Rangers fighting each other. Now, in Hasbro's mind, they only say like, oh, we can't have Rangers fighting Rangers, not unless they're under spells or whatever. Now, you could say, hey, this is just a friendly training simulation, or this is just something how to see how the Rangers would react to other Rangers, seeing that they've got powers, and how like aliens could have more, could defeat other Rangers. So it's just kind of a way of coming up, or you could have the Ranger games. Whichever way that you look at it, if Japan can do it and most of their TV series are aimed for kids as well, how can they have Rangers fighting each other and be like, hey, this is absolutely okay? It just adds a little bit more. And if you made your own projects like this and added a little bit more into other things, like, hey, maybe we run a mini series going on, or maybe we interact with other Rangers, you could do a lot more. But it just feels that Hasbro has this whole thing of you're allowed to do one thing and one thing only. And this has always been the case, even with Saban and Disney. It's only one thing only, that is it. And it does kind of ruin it, where you look at, say, Japan, and they do like loads of different things in there. Sometimes you have the movie, sometimes you have a little bit more extra, which makes the whole brand even better over there. It just feels like the expectations for Power Rangers is so low that it's like, it's fine, who cares about it? It also means that Hasbro could actually sit down and start looking at who's buying this. I mean, who is really like Power Rangers for? Like, you have people that have been watching it since day one, you have teenagers, you have young adults, you have older adults, you have whoever is watching this. So you kind of think that with all this information that's going around, you have also social media to check on who is watching this and who is producing content on this. So why wouldn't you kind of take that and go, okay, well, it looks like more of the adults are doing it. So, take that as you will. Like, you have the power to do this, and you're not sitting around going, oh shit, what are we going to do now? Whoopsie type thing. You really want to make sure that you're hitting the right audience, rather than just going like, oh shit, well, if we're concentrating on this audience, it's not really working that well. It's just a big thing. What are you going to do? When making something on the same levels as Marvel, like something like Loki, WandaVision and stuff like that, you can do this for the brand. The more that you put in on this, the more you're going to get on a return. People are going to take note. I mean, look at how people did when Iron Man dropped or when the Incredible Hulk came along. I am always a firm believer that until Marvel started taking things seriously, any sort of comic book film that came out, everybody was like, oh my god, like this is not what I want, like this is for kids, this is for the geeks and stuff. But when Marvel moved into the mainstream, everybody started watching it. Everyone wanted to watch from Iron Man all the way up to Endgame. So you could do this with Power Rangers. You could easily start making more quality shows to show that there is better things out there for the brand, rather than just the generic, oh, let's just adapt a Sentai and then let's just make it really silly like Power Rangers has been all along. You could make something a lot more serious along the ways. You could make it very similar to Loki, or you could make it very similar to WandaVision. But it feels like when you're putting more time and effort into your own productions, that's what you want. That's what you're aiming for, rather than just the well, it's a kid's show, it's just gonna sell toys, off you pop, comical farts. That's all it is. It doesn't really work, and I don't know why like Saban didn't take note when he brought it back. Are people liking Samurai? Okay, we have to figure out what Nickelodeon wants, but let's try and make this a little bit better. Hasbro started doing that, but now they've kind of dropped the ball quite a lot. I think that if you're keeping Power Rangers to a kid show, it doesn't really work because you're limited to what you're able to do. You can't have more mature storylines. You can't have, you can't really explore characters that well because you can't move forward. You have to have a limit, which isn't what it is. So when it comes to expectations, you're always going to have the lowest from the fandom, and that's it. And that's not what you want. You want pretty much every season for people to go, holy shit, I can't wait for the next one. I really liked Dino Fury, I really liked Beast Morphers, and I really liked Cosmic Fury, and I liked how things were being built up. I didn't like some of the executions on a few things, but still, it was a lot better than we had from Saban when he brought it back. I think you don't need to aim it for selling toys anymore, because Marvel doesn't really do that, DC doesn't really do that. You have a thing where people are going to go buy the product anyway, and that's how you kind of get your brand to work. Mighty Morphin started off, people are still buying the toys. You've started off with the Lightning Collection again. Hasbro added the Lightning Collection, so people are going to buy that, and they are, because not because a show has taught them that, it's because they want to buy the product, so you can move away and not focus on any toy selling, because the toys will sell themselves. It's pretty easy. Now, I've been saying this for a while, that I think that certain things are holding it back, like the Sentai footage. Now, people are instantly going to go, what? You can't get rid of Sentai? No, you can get rid of Sentai, but you can keep the roots of Sentai and what made the show popular in the first place. You can always keep that. You just don't have to rely on the Japanese footage to tell your story. I like seeing the Zords. I like seeing some of the battles, but I really like original stuff. And Cosmic Fury was original. Yeah, they had some Zords put in there, but majority of the time, everything was original footage. And that's what I want from a show. You don't always have to say, hey, we have to put snippets of Sentai in there. But they tried their best with Cosmic Fury. It did pretty well. What do you want next? What do you want? What does the fandom want next? And this brings up a very good point. Now, Dan also does bring up this point in his video, and it's the fact of what do the fans want? Because there is no pleasing fans in my eyes. You say, hey, let's go back to 40 episodes. Everyone complains. You turn around and say, hey, I want to make this a carbon copy of the Sentai. People complain. When you make it original, people complain. It's super hard to kind of go, hey, what do you want? Now, when I say carbon copy, Samurai was a carbon copy of Shinkenger, and people complained about it. They didn't like it, or some people, should I say, they didn't like it. They were like, oh no, this is extremely boring. And then as soon as they moved away, it's like, why can't it be exactly like the Sentai? Why can't they copy the Sentai? It just got really frustrating, because I don't know how you would please a lot of people. I still think that if you went around each person and said, what would you like? And they gave one thing, they would still complain about that one thing that they suggested. I feel like if they do change it a lot, then people complain because it's not like their childhood. It's not like Mighty Morphin. It's not like Time Force. It's nothing like this whatsoever. And they hate it because they don't want to move away from that change, because it's a cozy feeling. It's like the Power Rangers each season are giving them a hug, and they don't want to move on from that. So when Hasbro or Saban or whatever try something completely new, they freak out. They don't like it. They complain. It has to be exactly like before. I've had loads of arguments about this online in my comment sections as well as on Facebook. It feels like a part of the fandom wants certain things to move forward, but the second that they do, they want it to go to back. They see that the franchise is failing, and yet they acknowledge it, but then they go like, well, I don't want it to change whatsoever, which then makes it really, really hard to produce something that they will like. But then again, I think Hasbro just needs to go, do you know what? You're having this. We're not going to change it. And if you don't like it, well, it's already been shot. You're going to grow to love it, which a lot of people do in the meantime. It's just, I don't think there's any winning for it. People have brought up the 2017 film. Well, that failed because, it was completely different. They should have stuck with Sentai. The reason why I think Power Rangers, this 2017 film, failed, because the director didn't give a shit. He didn't want the elements of Power Rangers. He just wanted a superhero film with the name Power Rangers on there to attract the fandom and stuff like that. He didn't want the music of Go Go Power Rangers being played that was from the 95 movie. He just wanted to put political stuff in there. And we saw quite a few things which I didn't agree with, which I didn't think sat right for a superhero film. We then also have a really bad placement for Krispy Kreme, which, even when he was like, oh, no, it's not, it's definitely not. It blatantly is, because they needed that money. I mean, Zeo Crystal, out of all the places in the world, you put it under a Krispy Kreme and then have Rita eating a donut seductively. It doesn't make sense. But also, he didn't want to put in the Zords forming into a Megazord, which, is the main thing when it comes to Power Rangers, Megazords. So why? Plus, also, you have the Rangers morph near the end of the film, and you don't have them at the in the middle, halfway. You show their training, then you would have them. Here is a Power Ranger. You don't even have it's morphing time, which is the most iconic phrase in all the franchise. It's not that it tried something different, it was completely different, and you could easily have fixed it, but again, they didn't. So fans will complain. Some fans absolutely love it, some fans absolutely hate it, so it's hard to please everybody. For me, the film is the worst, but yet it's the best out of all the Power Ranger films that have ever come along, and there's not that many. As I mentioned, fans really want to keep this the same, so when we try to have new expectations, they're not met, because we have them set back in the the 90s, the Disney era. That's literally the expectations that we have. And I think that when it comes to whoever takes over the Zord mantle or whatever, needs to actually turn around and go, how do we break expectations? How do we break this to make sure that it's the best possible product that we can have, rather than just the generic boring stuff? How can we do that? And I think that we should always have these high expectations, because literally we want this brand to do phenomenal. We want it to do more phenomenal. We want it to do its very best. But I feel like we're in this rut, and I feel like fans just go, do you know what? As long as there's a morph, I don't give a shit. And once you lower your expectations so low, you're just going to not care about the series. Oh, next year it's going to do the same. The year after that, it's going to do the same. So we should have high expectations, and we should hone these expectations to whoever controls the brand. I don't know if Hasbro are going to keep it. It feels like they don't want it anymore, and they were like, oh shit, we got too much on our plate, when they haven't, because majority of their product isn't that great. But you kind of think that they would want one of the biggest brands out there, or franchises out there, under their belt, so that they can make more toys, that they can make entertainment, and that's what you want. But again, we should hold our expectations to Hasbro, because we know that they're watching. They always say that they listen to fans and stuff like that, so we know that they're watching. So to wrap this up, I feel like if Hasbro keep making these decisions, we're not going to see Power Rangers come back in any form. If the reboot doesn't get the numbers flowing, whatever, I feel like it's going to die down, and that's going to be it. I feel like the previous CEO of Hasbro knew exactly what was going on, but there's no plan in place, and he didn't write anything down and say, hey, this is what we need to carry on for the next 5 to 10 years. I think literally they just went, right, now we can change this, and they become a video games company. And Dan asks, should we lower our expectations? I'm like, no. I think that we should hold Hasbro accountable, as I've just said. Anyway, I am going to leave it there. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. What do you think about all of this? If you like this sort of content, hit like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. Why not check out the Patreon as well as the channel memberships? And with that, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to shout out Kimono Cat, Kira Stanada. Your help goes a long way to help support the channel, and if you want to help support the channel, the links to my Patreon and channel memberships are listed below in the description.
あらあら、チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。以下のリンクから商品を入手することができます。